welcome back to the Messed Up Movies Podcast, the podcast that celebrates movies and filmmakers that embrace the insane, the outrageous, the unhinged, the off-kilter, and the all-around kind of messed up fun you can't take your eyes off of. What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Griffey, joined as always by my friend, co-host, and guy who lives in the cemetery in your backyard.
Oh, Alex Dandino, that's me.
All right, guys, some brief business here. Make sure you subscribe to Misfit Parade's YouTube. You can see video versions of the pod, shorts, fun stuff. We're working on the all-time kill list, messed up kill list. So that's been a blast. We got little stuff we're rolling out over there for you. That would mean the world to us. Misfit Parade on YouTube. Go to Patreon, the Messed Up Movies Podcast Patreon community. We got exclusive miniseries. We got a huge Patreon exclusive library. You get a vote on movies that go in there. We're trying to build our community up. We have great friends over there. We'd love for you to join. That's the best way to support the pod. All right. We're here. So as those of you who know, those of you who have been listening with us for a long time, since the start, you know that the film Alchemist, October, was a big deal for us every year. I think it was the first year we did all the Nightmare on Elm Street. No, you're right. You're correct. The first year we ever did the pod, October came, and I was like, why would we do one episode a week? Let's do all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, all the Friday the 13th, and we'll end on Halloween Day with Freddy versus Jason. That, of course, wasn't enough pain, so we started the October Mega Marathon, where every day in October we drop a new episode. 31 days, 31 pods. Every year it was a gargantuan undertaking of love and misery, and we did it, and we loved it, and we had all our friends come on and pick movies and talk about it. Now that we're here with the new format in the Messed Up Movies Pod, we cannot do that again in the way we have the show formatted, right? So we have decided we still want to give you guys some extra love, right? We still want to drop some balls, drop some dong. Is that the phrase? Maybe that's weird for October. Don't drop dong in October. But we're going to do a lot of shows. So Alex and I came up with a brilliant fix. So Tuesday through Thursday, every Tuesday through Thursday, you're going to get a new episode this October. Still have New Movie Monday, still have Filmmaker Friday, and have the Patreon exclusives and mini-series on the weekend. So you're still going to get a lot of episodes, right? The idea we came up with this year, let's go back to the roots, right? We're restarting. Let's go back to the roots. So we are doing a tandem billing, right, with Universal Horror Monsters. The thing that made me the horror movie fan I am is finding the Universal Horror Monsters young, right? They were on Muppet Babies intro. I saw The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and then went back and found all these Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, I think it was called, or Dracula. Those were like formative movies for me that decided I was going to be a horror fan forever. So we're doing Universal Horror Monsters and then trying to pair them with a similar movie from Hammer Horror, which is something I found much later in life, right? Kind of 60s, 70s British horror retellings of these, right? In Technicolor, right? Big Bad Technicolor. With Christopher Lee and a myriad of great people involved in that. So we're going to start here with the granddaddy of them all. Some people say the first true great American horror movie, Dracula. So we're talking about 1931's Dracula, directed by Todd Browning, kind of, and Karl Fruend, the cinematographer, apparently had to take over a lot as Browning was seen disappearing from set or not very present. Todd Browning was a very troubled man. Who was going through a lot. You would also maybe know him from Freaks, one of my other favorite early horror movies.
Came out the year
starring, the big thing in this one, right, is that this is the introduction to Bela Lugosi, right? So, Alex, I'd like to start here. Why is Dracula such an undying icon for us? I was watching one of the special features on the 75th anniversary DVD, right? They had these cool sets for all the Universal monsters. And some guy said that Dracula might be the first wide media-friendly monster that we've ever had. One of the most media-friendly characters we've ever had, which sounds weird, but it is. Dracula has this big crossover appeal, right? People who haven't seen Dracula, you say that word, they immediately can conjure an image, right? Bela Lugosi in this movie essentially did what Jaws did and defined kind of a horror element for an entire population for all time. What about Dracula makes him so undying to us?
I think the versatility of a guy wearing a cape and a suit and just being weird is kind of there's a universal element to that. I think that's by the way, that's really reductive what I'm saying. I'm not trying to say that it's like only that.
Yeah.
I think the story
if you bought a
of
ticket for
Dracula,
Superman,
one,
you get it. You get it.
Yeah. I think for one, the story of Dracula is what is attractive, because the story of Dracula is not just about this vampire feeding off the living. There's a very gothic, romantic element to it that is hard to surpass, and it hits the notes for every single reader or enjoyer of pop culture. If you like romance, there's a little bit of romance in there. There's some sort of like, there's a level. I think that's really what it is. I'm going to say that that's what it is. The versatility of Dracula lies in the fact that there is like there's a mild matter of romance to a guy who has lived forever and is just trying to get down.
And I think that's key, right? And one of the big changes this makes from the book, right? The book's kind of this hodgepodge of like journals, and it's very interesting layout that the book has, right? This movie's based more on the play, right? That Carl Laemmle Jr. saw. That kind of tries to streamline this into a more narrative thing, right? Which Bela Lugosi had played on Broadway. Apparently they wanted Lon Chaney to be Dracula the first time. And they ended up on, but he died. He died of cancer, I believe. And so they ended up on Bela Lugosi, right? They didn't have a lot of money, and they took a chance on this guy who played it on Broadway. And I think one of the biggest changes in those two castings is what has made this Dracula, and maybe the vampire writ large, so popular to us is because Bela Lugosi, he's kind of got this charm and this swagger, right? You see his face. Yeah. Unlike a lot of monsters, right? If you go through the other Universal monsters, you got Frankenstein's monster, Mummy, Wolfman, Invisible Man, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Dracula, you see a human being, right? Who has become monstrous, right? That at one time, that guy was probably like us. He probably had a kid who was nagging him. He wasn't making enough money, like whatever his deal was. I don't know what he was doing before. And then he became this fucking monster, right? And so I think the vampire, to your point, I think there is a romanticism to it. This eternal life. There's something inherently, and especially for audiences in 1931, sucking on people's necks, right? There's an intimacy and a bridge that's easier for us to cross. To it for sure. Yeah, with a human monster.
There's something you just said, too, that I think is also key to the Dracula being eternal, so to speak, it is the matter of who plays Dracula. Because we've seen great Draculas, we've seen terrible Draculas, but there's actors who have been Dracula who haven't made a fucking dent. There's actors who are indelibly burned in our brains. And the two that I know off the top of my head are obviously Bela Lugosi and Gary Oldman. Now, Gary Oldman also has like a lot of joie de vivre of it being a Francis Ford Coppola film, but I still remember that performance. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, I remember this performance. Like, this level of swagger's a good way to put it. Like, I'm not sure how else to explain the Bela Lugosi of it all, because he was, like, by the way, a really sad guy. Like, his life was not great.
We were just talking. They have the Lugosi graphic novel that we both got. It is so beautifully written. But yeah, he's just a haunted alcoholic. He's like a troubled man through a lot of his life, right? That kind of culminated in that sad Ed Wood chapter.
Yeah, this role really was beautiful for him, and then completely ruined his life. So, like, there's this whole other element.
This is the weird thing you don't think about, right? When we think of Dracula, we think of what Lugosi in Todd Browning set upon us, right? We think of the heavy Eastern European accent. We think of the Cape. We think of the Widow's Peak. Like, we imagine Dracula at all times. All Draculas are compared to Lugosi's Dracula. I could argue other people have played it more effectively. But he is the core image that every other vampire is put against.
It's the one we all remember.
Yes, and that's the thing.
Absolutely.
He could barely speak English when he took this role. He was learning the lines phonetically, which is kind of funny. Yeah. And that's why, because it seems like one of those things, I think if you watch it now and you don't realize that, you're like, oh, this is a guy who's like, this is my shot. I'm chewing the scenery. I'm draining the veins of the scenery. Listen to the children of the night. And you're like, that's not necessarily an acting choice. That's because he has to have this slow focused delivery because he can't fucking wing it in English.
That scene, isn't that interesting too? Like that scene particularly is this fascinating thing because watching it this last time was really cool because again, I don't know how I was able to do this, but watching it this time, I really was able to just like forget all the stupid things that I know about just like movies and movie making and all this other stuff. And really just watching this, it felt like another first time thing where I'm watching it. And
that's great.
I guess I just hadn't seen it in a really long time with Bela Lugosi sitting. Because
you know what is weird? It's the one I go back to the least, which is strange.
Yeah. But Bela Lugosi is burned in my brain. And I know what the voice is, and I know how, and watching it this time, especially that scene, you're like, that is like how like whenever you watch movies or whenever you like see people like, there's like a level of, I don't know how else to put this. There's like a level of foreigner that is just like children of the night. Like you're like, oh, that's a weird thing. Like because they don't speak the language, they're doing words the way that they think Americans would speak or the way that they think people, native English speakers would speak. Like, it's such a fascinating thing to watch. Mm-hmm. And that makes this performance so much more thrilling because you're like, oh my God, this like monster is putting on a show to basically just like eat this guy. Like it's fucking It's fucking brilliant. It's wild.
Even beyond kind of the xenophobia that's inherent in the Dracula story, right? This like powerful outsider comes, he brings a plague of rats, he's unleashed this little henchman Renfield on us, and you're just like, this is what we're talking about. This is why we need to build the wall, right?
This is why Joe Rogan's here. Thank God Joe Rogan's here.
Thank God Austin stands between us and Dracula.
Thank God Austin stands between us and the world.
But there is an inherent kind of xenophobia in the idea, right? But I think even more than that, when you watch it through the Lugosi film, is that there is this idea of this kind of power and this old world power and prestige, right? He's a count. Right, and we see the one girl is kind of taken with it, and she's like Countess, whatever, Countess Taylor, whatever her fucking name. It's not Taylor. I just thought of the first woman's name I could. But she's kind of smitten by him and taken by him, and there's this kind of clashing of these old world aristocratic, like lovely ideas, right? When he's like, I'm not going to do a lot of like renovations on the Abbey. I like it kind of downtrodden. It reminds me of the battlements of my homeland. And then these new people that are kind of like, hey man, that's not HOA sanctioned, right? And you watch these collisions of, the immigrant and the old world. And it adds this extra level of people who don't necessarily want to just see a foreign guy come in and be like, gross, don't like that, red flags, right? It's like, no, be culturally sensitive, you fuck. It turns out this guy is actually this monster amongst us. And one of the things I'd forgotten in the film that's so fun, because I remember the grandiose sets. I remember showing up to the castle with the bats and the painting of Castle Dracula. I remember him somehow walking through the cobwebs before Renfield has to like cut him down. Yeah. There's all these things you remember, like these powerful images. The one that got me today is when he first shows up in London and he's kind of walking. He's got his top hat on. He's looking like a pimp. And he walks up to that lady and she kind of looks up at him and freezes. And he just goes in slowly to bite her. Then there's, whistles and screaming. There's a dead lady. He just walks through the crowd. He just walks while other people are there. He's one of us. And then he's like,
it's fucking awesome.
I'm sorry, I must go check out the symphony. And he just goes in and is hanging out with it. And that little moment I forgot. I'd forgotten how, because this one always, to me, felt really slow. And it's like, come on. There's something about this very slow, deliberate
pacing.
Which is
weird, just like 80 minutes long.
Yeah, you never see Dracula like run. It's kind of the antithesis of what Christopher Lee did. Christopher Lee plays him like a tiger, right? Bela Lugosi's slow. He's among us, right? He's not tripping a lot of alarms. He's got this like slow delivery. There's something about this one that it captures dread so much better than I remembered.
Yeah, it really is staked in Lugosi's performance. Like it really, like it is paced in Lugosi. It's like paced like Lugosi walking. You're just it's so impressive. I think, the other thing too, and I realize I don't know why. I didn't realize that Bram Stoker published this in 1897. I thought this was published much earlier than
I know. I always think that too. That feels like it's like a book. I do this weird thing where, like, if it's not, like, 1850 and up, I assume everything's, like, the 1500s.
Yeah, I assume everything's,
that's
1600
old as shit,
like that.
yeah. I have no context for what these centuries
mean. Like the idea of vampirism and like particularly this version is so recent, and I'm just like kind of fucking, my mind is kind of blown by.
Well, that's what you forget. Like Bram Stoker was pretty close to living to see this because he always wanted an adaptation, and so he saw like some of the plays, but he passed away in the early 1900s. He died in
1912.
Yeah, so he was like 20 years away from getting to see like. And Dracula exploded. Like, this was a big fucking movie at the time. A cool thing about this movie, too, I had forgotten, that I saw on a video I was watching, right? Because this was kind of at the start of talkies, right? A lot of the theaters were still not fitted for sound, so a lot of people that saw Dracula the first time saw it as a silent film with the fucking dialogue cards still in.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy, because you think back and you're like, what's the most iconic thing from this movie? It's Lugosi's voice. And you take that out and you watch, and Lugosi's performance still fucking pierced through that.
It's
I think, we do the like, his voice got us.
Eyes.
Okay, so that's the shot. And they do this a lot in movies now, but it's when they go in close on him and he has that fucking murder stare. But they put the little rectangle of light as if he sees and knows more than we do. Right? He's seeing something that we're not as the audience, and they're keying in. That shot mixed with him looking at women in bed, right, like that. And again, I think it's so crucial to what made this movie so scary is that a lot of vampires are played like junkies, right? Like they got to get their fix. They see the neck vein and they're like, ugh. They can't control themselves, right? This guy sees a lady and he takes her in. He slowly creeps up. When he's going for the neck bite, he leans in so slow. And again, I think what it is it's this we know he's going to eat these ladies. And it's that slow making us wait for it, right? We, the audience, become vampiric junkies too, where we're like, bite her, drain her dry. But he makes us wait for it, man.
Bite her.
Yeah, and I think that because there's a lot of things in this movie, right, that are very of that, like, first ones through the gate. There's a lot of shit where you're like, all right, these scenes are not exactly thrilling, right?
I'll tell you.
But the Dracula scenes all work.
I'll tell you the scene that's unexpectedly scary, and actually is pretty famous now because of just like how often it gets used. That Renfield shot, holy shit.
In the boat?
That is still chilling.
Dude, so yeah, he's on the Demeter.
Shit, dude.
Wait, let me find, Dwight Frye, right? But because he's down there and
oh my God.
But he has, like, Renfield is the MVP of this movie. Like, well, that's a lie because Lugosi's the MVP.
Absolutely.
But people forget
Lugosi, but like,
how fucking good Renfield is, right? So essentially,
he's really good.
He is in the bottom of that, right? He's just kind of this, because in Olden's version, it's Harker that goes to like do the estate and whatever. Renfield comes in and he gets bitten, right? And there's that scene where he like collapses. The giant bat makes him collapse. And the brides come for him. And Dracula comes through the mist. And he's like, oh, waves his hands and they back off. And he slinks down to the floor to bite him. The next thing we see, I love this. Like Renfield wakes him up in the bottom of the Demeter or whatever. We're on the ocean. Yeah. It's chaotic night. And he just goes, he's like, I'm loyal to you. I'll serve you. And he goes, but you'll keep your promise, right? You'll give me some lives. And he goes, not big lives, little lives. Lives filled with blood. Like Renfield is doing all this. And he's like, just let me suck a rat. And it's so, like, it's dire. It's fucking dark. It's scary. It's like this man's soul has been absconded with, and all he's going to get is to suck on rodents. And then, because he comes up and Dracula's on the ship, and next thing you know, the ship rolls into port and everyone's dead. And they go down to the hatch, and Renfield's just holding the rails and looking. It's one of those that should be in a museum. Like that shot of just pure fucking madness, pure broken humanity. Yeah. Oh, God, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. That shot, dude, Renfield crushes this entire movie.
It's so good. It also, I have to say this because, like, again, I saw this movie after I saw another movie that I'm going to bring up, and it makes the viewing experience of Dracula that much more entertaining. Though, is one of my favorite comedies of all time is Dracula, Dead and Loving It, which was this Mel Brooks one. It didn't get a lot of press because obviously, like, Young Frankenstein's like a big deal for everyone. So he did this other one in the 90s called Dracula, Dead and Loving It. And it's like him and Steven Weber and Leslie Nielsen as Dracula.
Yeah, see, anything with Leslie Nielsen in that era was gold to me. He was the funniest guy on earth. Yeah.
So Leslie Nielsen is so fucking funny as Dracula. But Peter McNichol plays Renfield and does the best Dwight Frye impression of the like throughout the entire movie. Like just keeps it up the whole time. And every single scene that I saw, because again, like it's pretty much a straight adaptation with like extra jokes in it of the original Dracula movie. Every single time, I'm enjoying the movie and I'm really like thrilled. And then I remember, and I'm like, oh my God. And then I just start laughing in the middle of watching. It's like, and at no point is like, oh, this is absurd. It's more just like, oh, Leslie Nielsen is so fucking funny.
Yeah, he's so good.
Because it's like, you're just watching, but it's like you watch a movie like this because satire is satire. It's really fascinating. But you watch a movie like this, and it really isn't. It doesn't play. Obviously, it's not going to play for laughs. But even now, it doesn't play for laughs. It's still creepy as hell and atmospheric and gothic.
A lot of movies you go back, especially
to suck
like
the fun out of it.
Yeah,
and turn it into a comedy is pretty impressive.
I always think of like those 50s eras movies where like I go back and watch those, and there's a lot of like clunky stage play kind of shit that's like starting to lose me a lot.
Yeah.
This one is really cinematic, right? Like it really is playing with the form early on. Because I remember one of the funniest like behind the scenes of this, right, is that they would shoot all day and then the Spanish language version of the movie would come in with their cast of Latino actors and they would shoot all night, right? So they were using the same sets, doing the same scenes. And if you've ever seen it, I think it's not as good cast-wise, but they shot the fuck out of that, right? And I remember some historian had said once, essentially, they would come in and like kind of watch what the American guys were doing, and they would see like how they did it, and then use that as a launch pad, like, oh, we're gonna kick the shit out of that. And so it's so much more interesting in the cinematography and the kind of staging and dynamic motion of the movie, but they don't have Lugosi, man. They don't have Frye. And I think that's the divider. But it is kind of funny. If you've ever seen the Spanish language version, a lot of horror nerds and cinephiles will tell you it's actually the superior movie. I get it on the nuts and bolts. They don't have the icon. The icon of this is etched in history. Like, people will see Lugosi's face for as long as they are people because of what they accomplished, right? And there's something about... Yeah. Because there's this real evil outsider presence in this, right? Like, when the movie starts to fall apart is when a lot of old-timey movies fall apart, right? When it's just kind of white guys talking in, like, pure melodrama, standing around, like, a living room, right? Like, not to be rude, but every scene with Van Helsing in this is pretty reductive at this point. You're like, because we're not a 1930s audience. Van Helsing. Yeah, we know Dracula stuff. We know vampires, right? So we don't need any, like, he cannot appear in lights. And even, like, when Dracula shows up, Van Helsing never also moves faster than, like, a guy ahead of you in line at CVS speed. And you're just like, come on, Van Helsing, this shouldn't matter a little more.
Well, that's kind of the funny thing. Okay, this was the other thing that I think is fascinating, too. Is, like, I think actually Mel Brooks, because Mel Brooks was Van Helsing in the Dracula Dead and Loving movie, he rewrote all those scenes so that, like, the back and forth between him and Leslie Nielsen became this thing about having the last word. So they would just say these made up Yiddish words back and forth at each other. And I'm like, oh, that makes this all make sense. Because I agree. Like, I think Van Helsing is actually sort of like a non-entity in this movie. He's just like a white guy in the room.
Well, it's like
he tells everybody that garlic will kill him.
Yeah,
stuff.
Him, Harker, the guy who's running the asylum, who doesn't seem that concerned his daughter's going to get eaten.
Seward.
Yeah, he also very rarely moves. And it's like the only one of them that kind of rises above the muck of other guy in the movie is the orderly, who there's something very charming and weird about the orderly.
He's like the only...
And he gets like a great comedy beat where he's like, they've all gone nuts. He's like, it's just me and you that are sane. And she goes... I don't know about, or something. She says something and he like slinks away from her. And I was like, oh, they dropped like a funny beat. Like, this guy's killing it. But yeah, the rest of them all kind of just evolve into, why are these rich white people talking so much? And that's where the movie, because again,
those rich assholes.
Yeah, this is only like a 75-minute movie with credits. Like, this thing should cook.
Yeah.
But the slow atmosphere works so well for Renfield and Dracula. When the people start talking, it's just one of those clunky, like we just figured out better ways to present information in modern movies. And so that I think is one of those where you're like, this kind of hurts the movie a little bit. But I think again, there's so many beautiful moments, right? Like him finding Dracula not in the reflection and he smacks it and Dracula leaving and he's still got to be like, sorry, that is weird. In my homeland, we don't like mirrors. Bye. And the guy runs out. He's like, there's a wolf in our yard. It's like, people are so unbothered by everything that's happening. But again, I think this gets back to that theory, right? That like only 3 to 5 scenes in your movie need to be excellent. The rest of them just need to be good. There aren't scenes in this movie that aren't doing work or carrying the narrative. And again, we're going back to before everyone knew everything about vampires. Like, I mean, I would be shocked if you and I hadn't seen 1,000 vampire movies between us, right? You have to go back to this time when this was something new and fresh. They didn't know about glamoring. They didn't know that Dracula could be mist, bat, or vampire, or a wolf, right? That they didn't know about taking them, right? What's the difference between draining them and taking them, right? And so I think if you forgive it those things, because even in the middle of that, right, there'll be guys talking around a fireplace. Next thing you know, the maid faints, and we get that shot of Renfield crawling on his belly towards her. Here is a life full of blood. And you're just like, oh my God. Because you're like, Renfield, we don't know exactly like if he's starting to get powers or whatnot, but we know he wants to drink blood. And that image, right? Every time the movie feels like it's wobbling, and you're like, 30 stuff is getting in the way, it gives you an image that just will burn itself to your psyche. Those images of these monsters who are, again, and I think this is the great distinction between the rest of the Universal monsters, 100% humans that could be around us, could be our neighbors, could be our coworker. Those images of those people behaving monstrously are so ahead of their time, in my opinion.
Oh, I think that's interesting too. Is like this was also a pre-code, horror film, which is like, again, I don't think people realize like we really did just, God, dude, we really did just like regulate ourselves for absolutely no reason other than just like, hey, we can't be that cool. You can't just show sex on film.
It really is like the big American problem is how absolutely fucking culturally lame we are. Where it's like, ooh, neck biting. Like, so like, this was from 1934 to fucking 1966. So through a lot of the Hammer films, which is Britain, so not over here.
Yeah, we come up with cool shit, and they're like, whoa, let's make some rules to make this way less cool. It's like, really?
What is that? Are you people having fun in the midst of a depression? Niche.
Whoa.
Yeah, whoa!
I don't think so.
Yeah, we're going to slam the brakes on that.
Yeah. No moral relativism here. It's either good and evil or none at all. And you're like,
yeah, so this was 3 years before the code dropped.
No boobs or anything.
This film was probably one of the key pieces of evidence.
This is definitely
that they used to pass the Hays Code, right? Those absolute fucks. I believe it was called the Hays Code.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, again, I think
it was like this, Frankenstein and Freaks scared the shit out of people.
For
like,
sure.
Oh, we got to stop this.
Now, Freaks is way scarier than all these movies fucking rolled into a ball. Freaks
is fucked up.
Freaks
dude.
is absolutely insane. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
How do you think back to Dracula? Because I feel like one of the interesting notes in Lugosi's story, right, is that he came off Dracula. Mm-hmm. He's finally going to be a success. By the way, made $3,000 to play Dracula. That was his pay.
What is
$3,000?
I'm looking up what that is. And
yeah, in modern money. But yeah, he got $3,000. That was it. He went in to do the screen test for Frankenstein. And apparently Limley Jr. laughed when he saw him in the makeup. So he didn't get Frankenstein. But then Lugosi, as Lugosi was wont to do, right? He's a bit of an embellisher. Told the story about how he didn't want to do it because he's a real actor and shouldn't be covered in makeup. And he claims he birthed Karloff by turning down the role that he 100% just did not get, right? So this is the thing. Later, and I believe it's The Ghost of Frankenstein, Lugosi finally, and he was not doing well at this point, he finally got to play Frankenstein, right? Because he played Igor in The Son of Frankenstein, I believe it's called. And at the end, or at the start of Ghost, they transplant Igor, who was played by Lugosi, one of his best roles. They put Igor's brain or Lugosi's brain, into the Frankenstein monster, right? That was played by Lon Chaney Jr. And they kind of did Lugosi voiceover as Lon Chaney Jr. as Frankenstein starts talking. In the next movie, he is inherited with fucking Igor's brain and is blind, right? But because when they heard Lugosi doing the voice and saw him in the makeup, they kind of laughed at him, right? He was a bit of a frail man. And so one of the funny things about Lugosi, who gave us Dracula and all the iconography, he's the one who in that movie, he played the blind, shambling, untalking monster. So a lot of that Frankenstein, with the arms out, that's from Lugosi's performance because the monster was blind. Which is a really fascinating other historical note that Lugosi also gave us one of Frankenstein's key iconographies in a movie that was so bad they went back and reshot a bunch of it and just took out Lugosi's lines because they thought it sucked. But I think one of the interesting historical footnotes in Universal is that Frankenstein comes out, and I will say, not to be rude, but Frankenstein eats Dracula's lunch. Frankenstein is a superior film on almost every level. Karloff now becomes the megastar that Lugosi thought he should be, right? Later in films, when they're billed together, right? They get multiple movies where they get to play together, the Black Cat and this and that. Karloff is the star of the film, and Lugosi's under. Lugosi then made it like his personal mission to try to like steal the scenes from him and prove he's a better actor. What do you make of Dracula as the first, but maybe not cornerstone of the Universal movies? Where do you kind of put Dracula in the Universal histories?
Like in the studio's history or just...
the Universal monsterverse, I should say. Just the monsters. Because I do think Dracula is the one that... I would imagine it's the one of, let's say, maybe the Mummy's the lamest. Like, that people go back to the least. But I think people like Frankenstein, Wolfman, Invisible Man was so ahead of its time in special effects. Creature from the Black Lagoon was kind of one of the last ones. But I think people like that better. I feel like Dracula is somewhat the forgotten son of the Universal Monsterverse.
I don't know about that. I would say if you're going to look at the two pillars of, like, if there's like a Mount Rushmore.
Well, there's only like 6 of them, so yeah.
Yeah, like if there's a Mount Rushmore, let's say there's a Mount Rushmore and the head size indicates their like importance. I feel like Frankenstein and Dracula, you're going to sit there a lot and go, I can't tell the difference. Which one's more important?
Like, if this is like the Tom Brady statue, I think Karloff is
that's
the
a
big
good
one.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. Like if you get the statue in front of the stadium, I think like Frankenstein's is like 20 feet tall. I think Lugosi's is
the bigger one.
I think Lugosi's is almost the same size as the Wolfman, which is sad.
Yeah.
And I love Lon Chaney Jr. in the Wolfman. It's such a good performance. But I do feel like Lugosi's almost become a bit of a joke at this point.
I think that's only because that has very little... Okay, I don't think that has anything to do with this movie particularly.
Often parodied, right?
For me, Frankenstein is a 20-foot statue. Dracula is like at least 15. And then...
See, that... Okay, so this is a great exercise, because this is what I was getting at. I think Dracula should be right there with Frankenstein. I feel like he's been reduced to where he's like on the level of Wolfman and Creature. Right? And I think Invisible Man and the Mummy's like... I'm going to say this. Mummy's like the one they give away a bobblehead of at stadium night.
Yeah. I'm gonna say this. This is why I think that's the case. I blame Tim Burton. And I think the Ed Wood movie trivialized Bela Lugosi's legacy in a way that I think just changed him for an entire generation of people. Like, you and I are different. Like, we've watched a lot of movies, so it doesn't matter to us. And like, I don't even think Ed Wood's that good of a movie. It's fine. But I
didn't Martin Landau win the Oscar for playing the broken end of Lugosi's life?
Playing this fucked up version of this poor guy. Like, it's just a sad fucking thing to watch. So like, yeah, Martin Landau, I think won. I can't remember exactly.
He was nominated, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
For sure. No, he was definitely nominated. Like, it's the one time everybody was like,
let's not throw at Martin Landau. He was so
very good. Look, okay, I'm not saying Ed Wood is a bad movie. I'm saying that Ed Wood does this like trivialization of a man that like put together quite an interesting career.
Yeah, he won Best Supporting Actor for Ed Wood in 1994.
Had to deal with the fact that he got this role that turned him into an icon. Also pigeonholed him. Like he had to appeal it to casting directors. Like I think in the late 40s. Like he was like, guys, please stop. Like I can do things other than horror movies.
Well, it's hard too because he had the thick accent, and it so defined how we thought him. Like there was a gangster movie he was in. I remember I saw a clip of, and the reviewer is just like, it's just Dracula in like a Cagney suit, right? Because you just cannot escape seeing him as that. Even though in things like Island of Lost Soul and Black Cat, he's playing kind of these. Like he had range. He was a really good actor.
There are actors. There are things that actors sometimes become that you never shake. Like in some, like it's easier now. Like the internet era, it's easier now to just like forget who people were. Like even if they were doing this genre defining thing, like I think we're about to find out if this era of people can forget that somebody was like an iconic role when Robert Downey Jr. decides to be Dr. Doom instead of Tony Stark.
But we'll all watch that movie as if it's just a broken Tony Stark, right? Like,
of course.
He is defined.
But it's like, Bela Lugosi, I would say like Jason Alexander never recovered from the fact that he was.
Yeah, it can really be a gift and a curse because we laugh about this. We run a little independent movie company. I guess you can call us that. We're not a big money-making power player entity yet. But the amount of people we meet at the indie scene, right, where you don't have a lot of money, so you got to really know what you're giving people. You got to really spend those first years in movies and resources to really define when people come to Misfit Parade for a movie, they know exactly what we're offering them, right? You have to do things to stand out from the crowd. And we met a lot of people that have made a good movie. And I'm like, that's the hardest battle. You made a really good, compelling, no-budget movie. And the next thing, they don't want to double down on it. They're like, well, I got to do like my comedy, my art piece, right? I got to have something with heart the next time because God forbid I get typecast and people think I'm just the horror movie guy. And so even to this day, people are terrified of the idea of typecasting. My theory's always been to be so lucky, right? Like if you're just one of those guys that looks like a cop or an FBI agent, you're working. Like, they'll put you in stuff to just be the guy who runs in with the file. Hey, the judge signed the warrant, right? Like, you're working. But for Lugosi, it was the opposite. He had a very short shelf life. And the funny thing is, whereas, like, Christopher Lee played Dracula in 10 movies, something like that, he really only played Dracula in this, kind of an off-brand, The Kiss of the Vampire, and then again in Abbott and Costello, which was one of his last, like, that was the end of his, like, real run as a movie guy. And I think that was probably the last thing he really did that was, besides some of the exploitative little movies he did before the Ed Wood era, right? And it's sad, man. Like, he did create...
It is.
You could argue, and I don't think incorrectly, that Dracula birthed the kind of him and Karl Laemmle Jr. and Todd Browning and, whoever, they birthed the American horror movie as this big box office element. Because Karl Laemmle Jr. talked about how his uncle... Carl Laemmle, who ran the studio, right, did not like horror movies, did not like them, didn't think it was going to like be a thing that was financially valuable. Dracula blew up, fucking exploded at the box office, and kind of birthed the American horror genre, right? We'd had a lot of great German expressionism movies and this and that, foreign horror movies, and Dracula has a very expressionist kind of feel to it. But for being the kind of movie it is, I feel like in its historical context, it's been so muted and worn down to us that Dracula does not get the respect for the incredible fucking film that it is.
Well, I agree. And I think that goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning of this pod, which is like the versatility of Dracula, which is that it's, and like the vampire lore in general. The versatility of it being not just like this curse, but also there's a romance to it. There's kind of these other elements.
And this movie plays down the curse a lot. Like in the book, he's like a hideous. He's a Nosferatu, right? In this movie,
he's Orlok.
Yeah, he's just kind of like a suave, powerful, but still plays the kind of lonely, wants to feel warmth guy.
Yeah, that longing is a universal concept that I think is just, again, it's just one of those really fascinating things that when you watch a movie like this, the reason is because we've just carried this on. The reason vampires are so, and not just Dracula, but the concept of vampires, like up there, those fucking Twilight movies, is that everlasting love thing is, that appeals to an entire section of the community that absolutely no one in horror movies is like, oh, I got to have everlasting love or I'm out. Like,
yeah, I remember my wife had a piece of word art. It was like a love story that'll never end or something. And Sam, who you hear on the Monday pod a lot, he's like, that's fucking terrifying. I thought the marriage vows died with us. And it was like, no, dude, that goes forever. And again, I think there's a lot. And I think what you see a lot in this Dracula and a lot of the best vampire movies is they die and they're alone. And they're trying, like, this is like a classic vampire, like, trope is they see a woman now who reminds them of the woman they had in, like, the fields of Hungary or wherever. And, like, they think they can get it back and they never can and they destroy. And I think taking Lugosi and just making him kind of the suave, powerful monster, right? Who you could imagine sitting in a box with and being like, oh, this guy's fucking cool, interesting, whatever. He can come to your house and check in on you and you're not, like, the Wolfman can't come knock at your door and be like, hey, what's up? I came to check on you. You'd be like, whoa, it's a dog. Like, this is fucking unbelievable.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
get that fucking thing out of here.
The creature from the Black Lagoon, you're throwing sushi knives at him and shit. And it's like, Dracula can be with us. He can be among us. You see immediately the appeal. We all can understand the Faustian bargain of, I just let Dracula bite me, I get to be part of the gang, man. Like, I will live on through time with him, and we'll still go to the show and whatever. And I think that the lovability of the vampire is something that movies really took and amped up through the years, right? Like, some of my favorite vampire movies, it is the kind of fun, sexual, never-ending party element of it. And The Curse falls to the wayside a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just, again, there's a universality to Dracula that works. And the version of Dracula that I think sort of mutates off of this is that, sexy version that we're always talking about. That
if you've ever seen the Frank Langella one, he is just like, it's like a Walmart, like, pulpy, horny mom book. Like, he is walking in with his shirt unbuttoned. He's got that huge coiffed hair. And Frank Langella's just laying pipe. That's what that movie's about.
That's what it is. Like, I think that the universality of it is so steeped in sexual repression that it kind of.
I'm telling you, we don't even see the bites. We don't see bites or blood, anything, because. So it's almost like this exercise in edging, right? Where it's just like, okay.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a
bring
great
it down.
way to put it.
Bring it down.
1931's Dracula was the first edging film.
Yeah, I mean, I was glad we got to go back and redo this. I think this film is so much more well crafted than I had even remembered, right? I think I remembered a lot of the, like, oh, that's an old timey, like, whatever. I didn't appreciate it the way I did today. Maybe it's me getting older and looking back more myself. Alex, what's the most messed up movie in Dracula?
Oh, well, that's easy. It's the Renfield stare is the most messed up moment.
Yeah, Renfield in the bottom of the boat just staring at those guys.
What is going on?
Oh, that one's wild. If I had to pick a messed up moment, because I think the Renfield one clearly wins. If I had to pick a most messed up moment, I'm actually not even going with Dracula. I'm also going with Renfield. But it's when they run outside to try to, like, shoo Dracula away, right? They're trying to save Mina.
Yeah.
And the maid faints. And Renfield looks over and he's like, no one's around. Here is a life that is filled with blood just for my pleasure.
So fucked up.
Because that comes after Renfield's telling a thing. And so the image of him crawling at that lady is a messed up moment. But right before that, right? He's talking and he's like, Dracula talks to me in my cell. He doesn't even have to say anything. I see images and he's like, and I see a rat with glowing red eyes. Then I see 100 of them, 1,000 of them, 1,000,000 of them just for me. Right? And Renfield is telling us that the dream that Dracula is pitching him, as he is locked away in the basement of an asylum, what Renfield will get out of this for helping Dracula do his dastardly deeds is he just gets an unlimited fucking golden corral of rats to chew on. And then pairing that with the image of him saying, 1,000,000 rats or one maid, and crawling up on her, presumably to try to drink her blood. That, to me, because Dracula's a fixed entity. Watching a person we started the movie with who's just an aspirational climber, right? These people in the mountain village are like, don't go to the castle. Ah. They give him a cross. He's like, I got to make this money. And then watching what he becomes at the end, that to me is what really solidifies the horror of this film. And yeah, so I think Frye's got to have the understated MVP of the movie.
Also, one note: $3,000 in 1931 was $63,447 today.
That's not bad for a low budge.
So he, to be honest with you, he made scale. Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. Hey, Lugosi, he made scale. Nice, and you got a lot of merch deals, dude.
Got your SAG card. Nice work.
That's right. I hope you guys enjoyed Dracula as much as we did. We are ecstatic to be back in October. We're ecstatic to bring you all these extra movies because if this is not the month to celebrate on the Messed Up Movies podcast, I don't know what is. We'll be back tomorrow with Hammer Horror's first attempt at their own Dracula story, The Horror of Dracula. And we see a very different Count in this film, played by Christopher Lee, than we do in this movie. I fucking love the Hammer horror movies too. I can't pick which I like better. They're both so beloved to me. I am so excited for this journey.
Read this book.
Get the Lugosi book. If you're on YouTube, you can see the cover right there. It's incredible. Guys, make sure you subscribe to the Misfit Parade YouTube. Make sure you go to the Messed Up Movies Podcast Patreon page to support the show. Let us know things you want as Patreon exclusives. We got great miniseries about TV shows coming out left and right. I think by now Alien Earth would have ended. We just covered that one. So please go find us. Please help us celebrate this month of October here on the Messed Up Movies Podcast. We'll see you tomorrow.